I took the maze job because I needed to get away from screens and customer service scripts. Outside air, straightforward duties, and a paycheck that covered rent sounded like the right kind of reset. By October, I had a rhythm. Clock in, grab my radio and headlamp, stuff a few wristbands and a folded maze map into my pockets, and spend the night guiding people into getting lost without actually losing them. The maze sat on the far back of a family farm outside Poria. Mr. and Mrs. K ran the whole operation: hay rides, cider, goat pen, and the 6-acre corn maze that was supposed to be the main attraction. I liked it. Nights smelled like soil and sugar. My coworkers were local teenagers who still laughed at everything. We dealt with predictable nonsense: kids wandering off, dads who tried to cut straight through the rows, couples sneaking away for privacy. Nothing I couldn't manage. The first time I saw him, it was one of the calmer nights. I was standing on a hay bale near the entrance, counting groups as they went in, when something caught my eye: a figure moving diagonally through the corn, cutting across the pattern instead of following it. No one should have been moving like that. The maze was laid out in precise mirrored loops. No diagonals, no shortcuts. But this shape moved with purpose, like someone walking a corridor only they knew existed. "You see that?" I asked the kid running wristbands. He shaded his eyes. "See what?" "There, by Station 2. Going straight across," he shrugged. "Probably Ed checking the irrigation." But Ed shuffled when he walked. This person glided. Before I could press it, the figure slipped sideways and vanished into the stalks, swallowed up by the noise of kids and the glow of flashlights. I told myself to drop it. The maze plays tricks on depth. Lights flicker, shadows jump, sound bounces. You can convince yourself you saw a person where there's only corn. Still, on the drive home, the printed maze pattern kept flashing in my mind. Those perfect, right-angled paths. There wasn't a single diagonal on that map. The next night felt ordinary at first. Wind rattled the stalks, kids shrieked and laughed. Radio spat constant chatter about lost parents and found phones. Around 9, as the last daylight drained away, I saw him again. Same tall, quiet outline. Only this time he wasn't on a path at all. He was walking between them. "Anyone on West Side Patrol?" I asked into my radio. Static, then voices. "I'm at cider stand. Parking lot here. No one was over there." I checked the line at the exit and spotted him again, standing by the emergency gate, head turned slightly toward the maze, as motionless as a scarecrow. "Sir, wristband, please," I called. He lifted a hand halfway like he might show me something, then dropped it and stepped sideways into the corn. Not through the gate, straight through the wall of stalks. That's when it sank in. He wasn't coming out of the maze. He was coming in from the fields, and I was the only one who'd noticed. I started watching for him on my breaks. Instead of hanging around the concession stand, I'd pick a different exit and just observe. Every time, he materialized somewhere else. By the snack trailer one night, near the wooden bridge another. Never staying long, just drifting in and out like he had his own private network of doors. On the third night, I took the ATV and ran the outer berm, a packed dirt ridge circling the maze that staff used for patrol. My headlamp carved the field into bands of silver and black. Halfway down the west side, I saw it, a narrow slit through the stalks, running parallel to one of our paths. It looked like someone had parted the corn and kept it that way, forming a hidden hallway. The leaves were bent back cleanly, not crushed, and at the base were fresh boot prints. "Copy," I said into my radio. "Got a cut row on the west side. This isn't wind." "Hold there, mister." Kay answered, his voice steady. I killed the ATV and listened. The night went suddenly tight and quiet. Then faint but clear, a single footstep, not inside the maze but out there in that secret corridor. I snapped my headlamp back on, just corn and dark. The prints were sharp-edged. Whoever had made them hadn't been gone long. "Shut it down," Mr. K said finally. Lights up, clear the maze. The floodlights boomed on, bleaching the corn white and flattening the shadows. Families complained but moved toward the exits. I watched every face, hoping to see that tall shape join the crowd. If he did, he blended in perfectly. As the last groups filtered out, I heard it again. A single heavy step just past the glow of the lights. Then nothing. No scrambling, no voices, no crunch of someone running. Just that one wrong sound. We found no one. The next morning, I walked the west side again. The narrow corridor still traced the field, and at a blind corner on one of the guest paths, someone had tied a length of twine across the trail at about waist height. A trip line. I cut it down and stared at it there in my hand. Whoever this was wasn't just fooling around. They were setting things up. We told each other it had to be a dumb prank. None of us really believed that. New rules came fast. 2-person patrols only. Headcams issued to everyone who stepped into the stalks. No solo entries, not even for quick checks. Still, the nights felt different after that, quieter, as if the whole field were holding its breath. 3 evenings later, Ross radioed from inside. Station 5, hearing ripping noises west side. Like someone's tearing stalks. Copy, I said, already steering the ATV up onto the berm. The sound came and went like a stick dragging along the corn. When I reached the ridge, I turned my light off and let my eyes adjust. My heartbeat fell into step with the wind. Then 3 rows ahead, the corn moved. Not the messy sway of wind, but a smooth wave at shoulder height, too low and narrow for a deer. I flicked my headlamp back on and caught a brief shiver of motion, stalks shaking in a line, as if someone was hurrying away down that hidden hallway. I brought the whistle to my lips and blew 3 sharp blasts, our shutdown signal. The maze froze. Radios exploded with questions. Mr. K's voice cut through. All staff escort groups to nearest exit, now. By the time anyone joined me, the secret path was empty again, but the Fresh Prince told the same story. He'd been right there, close enough I should have been able to see him. We closed early, gave refunds, and called the sheriff. A deputy took a report, looked at the corn, and told us to keep an eye out. Small town code for we can't arrest a shadow. Days passed with no sightings. Then Wednesday morning before opening, I got there early to walk the berm. The corn was tall enough to blot out the sky. I took 1 step along the staff side and felt something catch just below my knee. Another line of twine. This one ran between 2 fence posts on the outside, where only staff ever walked. He'd been moving along our patrol route. I radioed it in, untied the string, and slid it into my pocket. That's when I noticed how wrong everything sounded. No insects, no rustle of wind, just the old metal gate complaining behind me. I stayed out there longer than I had to, pretending to inspect the fence while trying not to turn around. That night I volunteered for berm patrol. Headlamp, whistle, radio, standard kit. At first all I picked up was the usual. Kids shrieking, parents calling, corn brushing against jackets. Around 9, the maze thinned out. Groups moved deeper in and a pocket of quiet opened up around me. For a moment, all I could hear was the field exhaling, then 2 soft taps. Like the toe of a boot testing the dirt. West berm, I murmured into the radio. Possible movement near Station 5. Ross answered from inside. Holding a group. Want me to check? Negative. Stay put. I crouched and aimed my light low across the ridge. The nearest stalks dipped slightly, then sprang back as if someone's shoulder had brushed past. I couldn't see a body, but I didn't need to. He was there again, using that same hidden track. I started the ATV, not to pursue, just to make noise, to let him know I wasn't standing out there alone in the dark. The engine growled through the corn. A few seconds later, the leaves stopped moving. We never did lay eyes on him. By the weekend, things looked normal again. Cars filled the lot, kids screamed in good ways, and the season slid toward Halloween. But even on calm nights, I found myself scanning the dead corners of the map, watching for movement where no path was supposed to be. Once you see something walking against the pattern, you stop trusting the pattern. Our last cleanup day came in early November. The corn was brittle now, half fallen from frost. I walked the berm one final time, part duty, part compulsion. The private corridor was still etched into the field, a pale seam where the stalks never fully stood back up. I followed it to the back fence. On the other side were a tree and a shallow ditch, both just high enough for someone tall to move unseen. Standing there, I realized how easily he could have watched the maze every night, slipping in and out while we focused on the paying customers. Years later, I still think about that fall. The maze runs every October. It's safer now, extra lights, more cameras, more patrols. Sometimes they call me to consult. I tell them what to watch for. Clean breaks in the rows, waist-high strings where there shouldn't be any, paths that run alongside the official ones instead of crossing them. Most people think fear comes from not knowing where you are. Working that maze taught me the opposite, that the real terror is knowing someone else has mapped your route and is just standing there, waiting for you to reach the spot they picked. We kept telling ourselves it had to be some elaborate joke. Deep down, we all knew better. Perimeter checks matter. Your map isn't the only one. I'd been working from home for months, drowning in spreadsheets and reheated dinners. When I found a home swap app that let people trade places for a weekend, it felt like exactly the break I needed. No hotels, no lobby noise, just real houses and real people trading keys. That's how I met Kurt and Dana. Their Smoky Mountains cabin looked perfect in the listing photos. Wooden deck, warm lamp light in the windows, tree-covered hills on all sides. Their message was simple: we're heading into town this weekend. It's all yours, enjoy the quiet. They looked normal. Verified profiles, 5-star reviews, friendly messages. I offered my Nashville apartment. We agreed on 2 nights, and I drove out early Friday. By the time I turned off onto the gravel road, the air had that wet leaf, wood smoke smell that only happens in fall. The cabin ahead looked exactly like the pictures, cozy, inviting, surrounded by forest, except their SUV was still parked by the porch. Inside, the air was hot, almost stuffy. 2 damp coats hung by the door. A half-full mug sat on the coffee table. A skillet with red sauce still clinging to it rested on the stove. They'd told me they left an hour ago. The house said otherwise. "Hello," I called. Silence. I walked through the rooms expecting someone mid-packing. The bathroom mirror was still fogged. A towel lay twisted on the floor. I told myself they just left in a rush and forgotten to tidy up. I texted them, "Hey, just got here. Place looks great. Thanks again." The typing dots flickered on my screen, then disappeared. No reply. I unpacked a few things, trying not to obsess over it, until a low thump came from under the floor. The listing had mentioned a basement. I found the door near the kitchen, a small, plain panel with a simple latch. Locked. I crouched, pressed my ear against it. Nothing, just a soft hiss through the vent like air moving through ducts. Then a quiet metallic click from the other side, as if something brushed hardware or wood. I stepped back, forcing a laugh. Old cabin, new sounds, that's all. But something in my chest stayed knotted. I turned on the TV for background noise. Every few minutes, though, a creak ran under the floorboards. One slow step, pause, another. I blamed the heating system. Then the tablet on the coffee table buzzed. Thermostat, living room adjusted to 73 degrees. I hadn't touched it. I picked it up. A smart home control screen popped open. 2 thermostats showed up, main floor and basement. The basement one was running, set to 68 degrees. I tapped it. A password prompt blocked me. That was when I noticed a faint red glow from the bookshelf. A tiny camera lens tucked between paperbacks, a baby monitor style eye. The tablet chimed again. Camera accessed remotely. Someone was watching the feed. I grabbed the camera and turned it toward the wall. A text from Kurt came through almost immediately. "Hey, everything okay?" I typed back. "Yeah, but did you forget to turn off your camera system?" No response. 10 minutes later, another thump from below, louder now. I stared at the basement door. Texted again. "You sure you two left already? Sounds like someone's still downstairs." Nothing. I called the Home Swap app support line. The rep was soothing and useless. "If you feel unsafe, we recommend stepping outside and contacting local authorities." I hung up and started stuffing clothes back into my bag. I wasn't panicking yet, just done pretending this was normal. As I turned toward the front door, I heard it, a muffled squeak. The basement latch shifting, just enough to make that tiny, strained sound when pressure changes on the other side of a closed door. I didn't look back. I walked straight out down the steps. My keys rattled against each other in my hand. The woods were utterly still, the fog thicker now. I tossed my bag into the car and grabbed the door handle. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Kurt. "Everything's fine. Don't worry about the basement," no punctuation. No emojis, no warmth, just that sentence. I didn't answer. I started the engine and threw the car into reverse. The headlights swung across the porch. The cabin door stood wide open. A man was halfway up the basement stairs, barefoot, just inside the threshold, looking directly at my car. In the beams, I could only make out his outline, tall, unmoving. I slammed the gear into drive and shot down the road. My hands were shaking so badly, I nearly dropped my phone trying to dial 911, only to see no service flashing in the corner. No signal in the valley. I drove until I saw a neon diner sign and pulled in. Inside, surrounded by strangers and cheap coffee fumes, I finally called the sheriff. 2 deputies met me there about 20 minutes later. I told them everything. The SUV, the heat, the camera, the basement, the man in the doorway. They exchanged that unreadable look cops get. "We'll head up and take a look," one said. "You can follow us if you'd like." Against my better judgment, I did. The cabin looked quiet when we pulled up, porch light on, curtains drawn, no movement. The deputies knocked, announced themselves, then went inside. That same heavy warmth rolled out. Only now everything was spotless. No mug, no skillet, no coats. Bathroom mirror clear, surfaces wiped. The basement door was closed and latched again. They went down with flashlights. I stayed by the front door, staring at the bare coffee table where the tablet had been. When they came back up, one said, "There's a bed made up down there. Looks like someone's been staying in the basement, but nobody's home now." Headlights swept across the windows. A silver SUV, same one from earlier, turned into the drive. Kurt and Dana stepped out, looking relaxed, smiling. "Oh, thank God," Dana said, hurrying up. "We were so confused." She showed up before we'd finished leaving. The deputies asked what she meant. She explained breezily that there'd been a mix-up, that they'd just gone into town for a bit, realized they forgot a few things and were coming back for them. "You told me you'd already left hours ago," I said. She laughed lightly. "Oh, must have been autocorrect. You know how it is." Kurt stood a little behind her, hands clasped behind his back, expression unreadable. The officers glanced between us. "Sounds like a miscommunication," one said at last. "No one's hurt. We'll just document it." They took a short statement, told me it was best if I found somewhere else to stay that night, and left. As I turned to go, I saw a folded note on the now bare coffee table. "Sorry for the inconvenience. Please don't mention the basement." I pocketed it and walked out without saying goodbye. I checked into a cheap motel off the highway and sat awake until dawn, the note burning a hole in my bag. In the morning, I filed a formal report through the app, attached screenshots of the texts, and described everything as calmly as I could. The support rep promised they'd investigate. 2 days later, the listing was gone. So were Kurt and Dana's profiles, messages, and photos. A week after that, I got an email apologizing for the inconvenience and refunding my credits. No explanation, no confirmation of who they were or whether the cabin was even theirs. 2 months later, I got a promo email from the app. Find your next getaway. I clicked out of habit. There it was. Same cabin, same images, same amber light in the windows. Only now it was listed under different names, Kelsey and Mark. I flagged it. The listing vanished the next day. When I called to demand answers, the rep thanked me politely for bringing it to our attention and said nothing else. Sometimes I replay that weekend and wonder what would have happened if I'd gone down those stairs. If I'd told myself I was being silly and opened the basement door. Because the timing, the texts, the still running heat downstairs, it all felt practiced, like a routine they'd run before. Maybe the app wasn't the trap, maybe the swap itself was. They said they were gone for the weekend. They never really left. It's been 3 years. When friends brag about cheap cabin swaps or cozy, short-term rentals, I smile and tell them to double-check that the owners actually went anywhere. Because some people don't move out when you arrive. They just move downstairs. I spent most of that fall hiking alone. It started as an excuse to flee my cramped apartment and its stale air, and turned into a ritual. Drive out, climb up, stand at an overlook for 5 quiet minutes, take a few photos, then head home under a sky that looked painted in orange. That Saturday was one of those unreal mid-October days in the Shenandoah Valley when everything looks edited. Reds, golds, and greens stacked on each other. Air cool enough to wake you up, but not enough to hurt. I'd already knocked out 2 short trails and decided on one last overlook before calling it a day. When I pulled into the lot, it was empty. A low stone wall lined the edge, mottled with moss, and a sign reminded people not to feed the wildlife. I parked, grabbed my little tripod, clipped my phone in, set the timer. 3 beeps, click. I wasn't angling for anything fancy, just proof to myself that I'd been somewhere beautiful. Leaves whispered in the trees below. Somewhere upslope, a crow complained and then went still. That's when a dark blue sedan rolled in. It turned off the main road slowly and parked 2 spaces down, headlights off, engine still running. Nothing about it screamed danger. People pull into overlooks all the time, but the way the driver positioned the car, nose angled toward the road, at a sharp line for a fast pull-out, stuck in my head. I glanced down at my phone screen and caught the faint reflection of the car. The driver sat low, almost below window level. When I turned to look directly, they straightened up. Maybe they were eating, maybe shy. I tried to believe that. Every time I faced the valley, though, the driver sank back down out of sight. Every time I turned around, they popped up again. I kept fiddling with my tripod, pretending I hadn't noticed. The view was gorgeous. I barely saw it. While I bent to adjust the legs, the sedan crept forward a few feet. Gravel whispered. I turned to stare at it. The car stopped. I raised my phone like I was framing another shot. In the reflection, the driver's seat looked empty. I hadn't heard a door open. The car hadn't rocked. Looking back, that was the moment my body understood something my brain didn't want to name. I told myself I was overreacting. The longer I stayed, though, the stranger it felt. Whoever was in that car was syncing their movements with mine. I decided to leave. To reach the driver's side door, I'd have to walk through the narrow space between our vehicles. Instead, I angled wide, putting my car between me and the sedan. I tried to look like just another hiker done with their photo session. The sedan rolled forward again, closing some of the gap. I unlocked my car, slid in through the passenger side, and crawled across to the driver's seat. My heart was hammering, but my hands moved cleanly, like they'd rehearsed this. I turned the engine over and locked the doors. The sedan idled. Then it drifted closer until its front bumper was almost touching my rear one, pinning me in. I dropped a location pin to my friend Liv and texted fast. Scenic overlook. Weird car behind me, lights off. Won't leave. She replied almost instantly. Call me now. Before I could, I leaned on my horn. One long, unbroken blast that ripped through the quiet and ricocheted off the mountain. The driver jerked upright, startled, then went still again. I kept the horn pressed until my arm burned. Liv texted, Ranger station's nearby, I'm calling. Stay in your car. The sedan nudged forward, front tires turning left like it was about to swing across the narrow exit road and box me in completely. That decided it. I floored the gas. My car lunged forward and squeezed through the shrinking gap before the sedan could block the lane. In the rear view, the blue car didn't follow. It rolled back to its original space near the wall and sat there. A few bends later, I spotted a Ranger cruiser parked on the shoulder. Relief hit like nausea. I pulled in behind him, hazards blinking. He rolled his window down mid-paperwork, clearly not expecting anyone. There's a car up at the overlook, I blurted. Blue sedan, lights off, watching me. Tried to block me in. He didn't waste time. He flipped on his lights and gestured for me to follow. We turned around and headed back up. The overlook came into view. My fresh tire tracks cut curves in the gravel. The sedan was still there in the same spot. The Ranger parked sideways, blocking the exit. He stepped out, posture relaxed but alert, and approached the driver's window. No movement inside. Sir, he said, roll your window down, please. Nothing. He repeated it louder. Finally, the glass hummed halfway down. The driver was a man in his late 30s, maybe. The angle of the light hit his eyes. His face was blank. This area closes at dusk, the Ranger said evenly. Mind telling me why you're sitting here with your lights off? The man smiled thinly. Didn't want to mess up anyone's pictures. License and registration, please. The man passed over his license. When the Ranger asked for registration, he said it was in the trunk. Stay where you are, the Ranger replied, circling to the back. He tapped the license plate. A dark tinted cover warped the numbers, making them almost illegible. You'll need to remove this, he said. It keeps cameras from reading your plate. The driver stared straight ahead, as if none of this involved him. The Ranger leaned close, tilted his head to catch the numbers at an angle, scribbled them down, and stepped away. All right, he said finally. You're leaving the park now. The man nodded, put the car in gear, and rolled off at a normal speed like this was the most mundane interaction in the world. The Ranger came back to my window. You did the right thing, he said. That cover, most folks use it so toll cameras can't read their plate. Sometimes it's worse than that. He saw my face and added, we'll file a report. Does that mean anything? I asked. He let out a breath. It means we know who he is, and that he doesn't have any warrants out. Next time someone shadows you with their lights off, don't wait. Go straight to a populated area. He led the way down the mountain until we hit a busier stretch, then pulled off and told me I could stop by the station to make a statement if I wanted. I nodded, still shaken. I ended up pulling into a crowded overlook near a gift shop and a row of RVs instead. My phone buzzed with messages from Liv. Ranger called me. You okay? What happened? Do you need me to drive out? I wrote back. Okay now, just freaked out, heading home. Even as I typed, my eyes kept flicking to every dark car that passed. 2 days later, the Ranger emailed me a short report. Vehicle identified, local address verified, no outstanding warrants. I read that line over and over. No outstanding warrants. As if that changed what could have happened on a silent overlook with no cameras and no cell service. At my desk on Monday, I scrolled through the photos from that hike. The shots from that spot were beautiful, golden leaves, blue sky, valley haze. But in 2 of them, blurred near the edge of the frame, was the sedan. Far enough back that the windshield was just black glass. All my other fall pictures feel calm. Those 2 make my stomach tight. I haven't deleted them. I've never shown them to anyone either. When friends talk about solo trips now, I tell them this. If a car pulls in and sits with its lights off, don't be polite. Don't wait to be sure, just leave. Scenic views are better when someone else is there to see them, too. Because out there, under all that beauty, it takes exactly one stranger for silence to turn into something else entirely. It started with what sounded like a harmless invitation. He was in my American Lit seminar. Quiet, sharp, one of those people who only spoke when he had something worth saying. After class one day, he mentioned his family's lake house in the Adirondacks and said I should come up and see the colors sometime before winter. We'd only chatted a few times, midterms, favorite authors, nothing heavy. The invite felt adult, like something people do in movies before their lives get complicated. I told myself it wasn't a date. Just two classmates appreciating fall. The drive up was beautiful. Every mile deeper into the mountains felt like slipping out of campus life. My GPS flickered in and out, but I eventually found the narrow dirt road lined with birch and maple. He'd texted earlier, running late, class went over. Make yourself at home. The cabin could have been on a postcard, cedar siding, green trim, a small dock reaching into a misty lake. For a second, I really believed I'd lucked into a perfect weekend. The front door wasn't shut all the way. It was pulled to but not latched open by maybe an inch. "Hello," I called, no answer. I pushed it open, expecting maybe a cleaner finishing up or some relative gathering luggage. Instead, I saw wet footprints across the living room, bare feet, leading from the sliding glass doors by the lake toward the hallway. The floorboards still shone with scattered droplets. "Eli?" I tried again, louder, nothing. The house smelled like sweat, spilled beer, and something stale. A lamp burned in the corner. Music drifted faintly from down the hall. Every hair on my arm stood up. I stepped inside anyway, sneakers squeaking where the wood was still damp. My plan was simple. Check the main room, call Eli, and get back to my car. The dining table was set for two, but clearly used. 2 plates with crumbs, forks askew, a half-empty bottle of wine. Someone had been here very recently. I pulled my phone out and started to text him. "Hey, are you sure no one's at the house? Door was open, lights are on." Before I hit send, a sound floated down the hall. A wet squeak like a heel sliding a little on wood. Then slow, bare footsteps. I froze. A man appeared in the hallway. He wasn't Eli. I'd never seen him before in my life. He was completely naked. Mud streaked up his legs. His hair hung in clumps. His pupils were blown wide, his chest heaving in quick, shallow breaths like something wild and cornered. For a heartbeat, we just stared at each other. Then he smiled, a twitchy, stretched thing that didn't reach his eyes, and stepped toward me. "Who are you?" I blurted. He tipped his head as if the words were distant, then lunged. I screamed and ran. My shoes nearly slipped on the wet prints as I shot through the doorway. His feet slapped against the boards behind me, shockingly fast. He laughed. A high, jagged sound like this was a game. I stumbled down the steps and threw myself into the car. I yanked the door shut just as he hit the glass, his face smearing against it, eyes wild, spit stringing from his mouth. He pounded on the window with both hands, shouting words I couldn't make out. Each hit rattled the whole frame. He never once tried the handle. He just kept slamming the flat of his palms against the glass, leaving streaks of water and dirt. All I could think was, if he figures out the handle, I'm not getting out of here. My hands were slick. I dropped the keys, grabbed them, fumbled them again. The ignition might as well have been on the moon. "Please, please, please," I whispered, jamming the key at the slot over and over until finally, blessedly, the engine caught. I slammed it into reverse so fast I almost clipped the porch. He shrieked, a sharp, weirdly joyful sound, and jumped back. I threw it in drive and floored it. In the rear view, he was still there for a moment, naked and grinning, running after the car until the trees hid him. I didn't stop for stop signs or messages or anything else. The road wound downhill forever before I finally saw a wooden sign, Ranger Station 1.2 me. I turned in so fast the tires screeched. 2 rangers were outside talking by a truck. I tumbled out of the car and tried to make my mouth work. "There's a man at the lake house," I gasped. "He's naked. He chased me. He. "Which property?" one asked, already moving toward me. I shoved my phone at him with the address. He glanced at it and his face tightened. "That's the old Dwyer cabin," he said, grabbing his jacket. "We've had trouble there before. They told me to wait inside the station." I sat on a bench in the cramped lobby, still in my mud-splattered sneakers, hugging myself and watching the dark tree line outside. Every blink, I saw his face pressed to the glass again. About 40 minutes later, they came back. "He's not there now," the older ranger said quietly. "But we found clothes, bottles, needles. Looks like someone's been squatting." "You said you were invited." I nodded and showed them Eli's texts. "Call him," the younger ranger said. "Let's clear this up." I did. Eli picked up sounding relaxed. "Hey, you made it up there already." "There's someone in your house," I said, voice shaking. "He chased me." A pause, confusion. No one's there," he said. "My cousin sometimes," he cut off. "What did he look like?" he asked, suddenly sharp. I described the man: tall, thin, dirty blonde hair, mid-30s. "Shit," Eli breathed. "That's Ryan, my cousin. He's not supposed to be there. He's had problems he uses. I thought he was in rehab." "I swear I never would have sent you up there if I knew." The ranger took the phone from me, introduced himself, and told Eli they'd handle things from that point. They filed an incident report, gave me a number to call if I wanted updates, and offered me a bed in a bunk cabin out back. I lay down. I never slept. Every time I shut my eyes, I saw his silhouette in the window, heard the wet smack of his feet on the floor. The next morning, Eli drove up himself. He looked wrecked, pale, guilty, on the edge of tears. He apologized until the words went flat, offered gas money, kept insisting he hadn't known Ryan would be there. His cousin, he said, had a history of psychotic breaks and would disappear to get high in the woods. The lake house was his favorite hiding place. The police found Ryan 2 towns over, still naked, walking along the highway and muttering nonsense. He didn't remember the night at all. Knowing who he was didn't make the memory sit any easier. The feeling of being hunted through someone else's hallway, the smell of damp wood and stale beer, the sound of bare soles slapping boards inches behind me, those lodged in deep and never really shook loose. Years later, I still flinch at the sound of bare feet on hardwood. It drops me right back into that cabin. People like to think they'd see danger coming, that they'd fight or yell or have some kind of plan. I didn't. I froze, then ran. And even now, when someone suggests a secluded weekend away, no matter how harmless it sounds, I hesitate. Because I can still picture those wet footprints leading down the hall. I still hear his laughter behind me. I still remember the cold certainty that if my car hadn't started, I wasn't getting off that property at all. When you walk into a place that feels wrong, listen to it. Doors don't hang open for no reason. Floors don't stay wet without cause. And sometimes the thing waiting inside isn't a ghost. It's a very real someone. Always look twice before you step in. And if something feels off, just go. Curiosity is not worth being right. Our town lives for October. If you've ever been in Burlington in the fall, you know the air smells like cider, fried dough, and wet leaves all at once. I'd been volunteering at the fall festival since I was a teenager. By now, I basically ran power, passes, and every weird little problem that cropped up. We set up on the town green the first Monday of the month. I had a clipboard, a neon vest, and way too much coffee. By noon, kids were weaving between booths. The accordion buskers' music floated across the lake, and steam from cider stands curled into the chill. It was flannel chaos and I loved it. The first time I noticed him, I figured he was just another tourist filming the scene. Hoodie, ball cap, phone held upright. He stood near the bandstand, lens pointed straight at me. I asked him to shift a few feet so he wouldn't block a vendor. He gave me a small, polite smile and did. End of interaction, or so I thought. The next day, he was back. Different jacket, same phone with a cracked corner. I was rolling up an extension cord when I caught his reflection in a metal sign, camera aimed at me again. He didn't pretend to film the band or the crowd, just me. By Friday, it felt like a pattern. I'd spot him, or someone who looked just enough like him to make me unsure, every single day. The hat changed, the spot changed, the cracked phone case didn't. When I told my friend Jess, she shrugged. He's probably making some artsy festival video. Yeah, I said, forcing a laugh. Nothing says cinematic like me duct taping cords. But that prickly feeling between my shoulder blades didn't go away. Even when I couldn't see him, I felt like a camera was pointed at the back of my neck. Saturday it rained. Not a downpour, just that steady mist that turns the grass to mud and pumps the smell of popcorn into overdrive. We opened anyway. People showed up with umbrellas and dogs in tiny coats. And there he was again, near the kettle corn line. Every time I looked directly at him, the phone dipped. Every time I turned away, it came back up. I told Jess. She said she'd mention it to the park's director, but nobody wanted to blow up at a guy for filming in public. So I kept working. Sunday night was teardown. The green looked tired, booths half-packed, string lights glowing against the mist. I was doing a last sweep with a contractor bag and trash grabber when I saw it. A phone on the bench under the old oak. Screen dark, corner cracked. People lose phones constantly. I picked it up intending to turn it in. The screen lit on touch, showing a photo. Me unloading boxes from the supply van the day before, shot from behind a tree.